This is the meat from an entire chicken, right there. That's a real chicken, a ranch chicken. It's just important to remember how absolutely spoiled we are today. Nothing like this modern stuff from the store today. The famous chef Ina Garten, we all love her. But I remember being young and listening to her give her recipe for chicken broth. And she says to take 3 whole chickens, boil them down, take the broth, and then throw away all the meat, all the bones, all the vegetables you put in, toss them. And I remember even as a kid thinking, that's crazy. That's crazy. Boy, that's looking good. The modern world doesn't get food. It doesn't get old-fashioned cooking, which is why today we're going all the way into a start-to-finish meal of chicken and dumplings. A ranch rooster, sourdough rising dumplings, the works. This is what history tasted like and felt like. We'll gloss over some of it for the faint of heart, but the joy of today is in seeing that one meal, one simple chicken meal, is straight out of history, and the results beat any modern version. So let's fire up the wood-burning cook stove, prepare a bird, and get the whole family in here to help. A meal like chicken and dumplings, there's a reason why this is such a staple food. It's a staple in America, certainly out west here. All people would have eaten it either with domesticated chickens or with prairie chickens, as they're often called, or sage grouse, any of the different types of grouse that you could get off the land, even pheasant. This rooster today, he's domesticated, but he is as small and skinny and little as any wild bird would be. And a meal like this, it's a way of utilizing the most out of that bird. So we're boiling down the bones and we're getting a broth. All the bits of meat from the legs, the breast, the back, all of it is getting shredded off and going into this dish. And when everything cooks down, we get a really nutritious meal that stretches. This can feed a lot of people with, honestly, a pretty darn small bird. So first things first, we can't have a heaping helping of a meal like this without getting the rooster into the pot. I'll keep it brief on the first stages, but let's just say with a brood of young new chickens hatched from eggs, some turned out to be roosters. And as the roosters started to get older, well, some became a nuisance. Now the kids and I caught a glimpse of the process, but Joe and Abby, along with Grandma and Grandpa, they tackled the real work here. This is a huge part of getting food. It's easy to act spoiled today and expect meat at every meal, but this is what one chicken dinner used to take. So into the pot went the plucked, rinsed, quartered, and ready rooster. A spare onion from the garden got chopped in half and followed him into the pot. Then it was back to our little garden for a vital ingredient. Have the weeds taken over? Yes. All this rain has made for a mad dash of growth, but the herbs are doing just fine. So please don't judge me too harshly. Were I a homesteader, yes, I'd likely be dead. But for this meal today, we're going to find all that we need from this little patch of ground. I'm grabbing a natural bouquet garni of thyme that'll hold together in the pot. And then I'm grabbing some sage too. I brought my homemade knife, but there's an old superstition that says never cut sage with a metal blade. So let's pinch it for now with our fingers. You saw that we seared those chicken pieces in lard for a minute or two here, and that's for flavor. Ooh! Ow, 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 ow! But I was tempted earlier to make fried chicken. There's a great old recipe in this book called Too Poor to Move, But Always Rich, and it talks about a homesteader's fried chicken feast here in Montana. But this bird is too small. He doesn't have enough meat on him, so better to save this fried chicken recipe for another day. And certainly if we were using one of the old laying hens, this would have been the rancher's way. Another favorite for our family came from chickens that were too old and too tough to fry. The old hens and roosters were canned in a pressure cooker, making them very tender, then stored in quart jars in the cellar, so they were available anytime during the winter. I remember watching Mom make noodles. After she rolled out the dough, she cut it into strips and laid them across the backs of chairs to dry. Chicken and noodles made a lot of winter days more enjoyable. Okay, so that rooster has been cooking down in the pot with the onions and thyme. And I just want that to have sort of a simmer, boil for, it's been about an hour. I'm looking for probably an hour and a half, because even though the rooster was very young, this is not a store-bought chicken, right? This is a ranch rooster, so it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be pretty sinewy. It doesn't have a lot of meat and it has almost no fat. So I just really want that to cook until the meat falls off the bones. I'm pretty sure that's gonna give us the result we want. So I want it to go a little longer, and then I'm gonna strain out the bones, the onion, and the thyme, and I wanna have the meat in one place, and I wanna have the broth saved, because that's when the chicken and dumplings as a proper recipe really kicks off. We're getting close, we're getting close.
Young George is my helper today. He's got buildings he's creating, and we have a big bowl full of flathead cherries ready for eating. A once-a-year treat. Because although we have some hours into this meal already, there's nothing on our plates just yet. So while that chicken cooks down, we have jam sandwiches and cherries to eat on the front steps. And a book to read on the sheepskin while we wait. Can you spit the seed? Spit the pit.
Wait.
Go.
One morning in Maine, Sal woke up. She peeked over the top of the covers. The bright sunlight made her blink, so she pulled the covers up and was just about to go back to sleep when she remembered, today is the day I'm going to Bucks Harbor with my father. Sal pushed back the covers, hopped out of bed, put on her robe and slippers, and hurried out into the hall.
An hour and a half later, the bird is out. That time simmering is what really helps tenderize him, because we want that meat to just fall off the bones.
As I'm pulling apart, I'm trying to get any of these little skinny bones. I don't want that into our pot, but look at some of this meat. This is beautiful meat. For as young and skinny as these roosters looked, this is fantastic.
Looks good.
And chicken and dumplings is the perfect use for a rooster like this. He wouldn't be much good as a fryer. He wouldn't be much good as a Sunday roast. But man, oh man, is he gonna be so good as chicken and dumplings. And it's a wonderful use for a rooster that was otherwise just being a problem. Now this rooster was the first one to go. This is about the time of year when you have to cull some of your flock. You're getting ready to go into winter. Although it feels like the middle of summer, preparation for winter really does begin right now. It's canning season, and when it comes to chickens, you have to decide who is fit to stay and who has to go. And this rooster, he was the first to go because he got a little bit too aggressive with all the ladies. And we can't have any of that because those chickens are there for the purpose of giving us eggs. We want them to have a nice, happy life and lay lots of eggs for us. And this guy was making that difficult. So into the pot he goes. Once I've got all this meat separated, it's going back into the pot of broth that we got off of this chicken.
And that will give us the base for this meal. But I've left out maybe the most favorite ingredient here, dumplings. And the joy of this recipe is you don't need an oven to make them.
I have made this mistake before, but not today. Not today.
That oven is turned off and it's just one pot for the whole meal. I like to think of myself as a connoisseur of these, but today we're going way out on a limb to make a true 1800s version, and it's one I've never quite had before.
Almost every recipe you'll find for dumplings uses a lot of baking powder or baking soda. And don't get me wrong, chemical leaveners definitely existed in the late 1800s. That was a thing. They didn't exist in the 1700s, but by the 1800s, yeah, they were coming around. But out here on a homestead in Montana, back in 1889, when this homestead cabin was originally built, you had to buy baking powder. You had to buy baking soda. Anything extra that you needed money and time to go and get and bring here, you would have tried to do without. And that's where sourdough comes in. Sourdough isn't some fancy, fiddly way to do things. It was a way to get things to puff up and rise and get light when you didn't have a lot of other options. So yeah, you could have gone out and got baking powder, but I bet a lot of people didn't. You would have used sourdough, and you would have used that sourdough to make it rise. Bugs.
Now, I've created this recipe by cobbling together lots of bits of knowledge, accounting for historically available ingredients, methods, and tools. After all, we're out here in a remote part of Montana in an 1800s homestead. That's very different from downtown San Francisco. So here's our recipe to test. 1 egg for richness, half a cup of fed, bubbly sourdough starter, and 2 cups of flour. I'm talking heritage 1800s flour here. And if you want to make this recipe, which I highly recommend, I'll put the detailed recipe in the description, along with links to support the channel, and even buy handmade wooden tools just like these, made by our friends. So we have some white and some heritage flour, then salt and pepper.
Okay, go. Yeah, that-a-way, George.
A bit of water or broth to make it come together, 1 ranch egg,
Ready?
and just a touch of fat. We're putting in 2 tablespoons of pure lard here. And of course, like most historic cooking, you can't start last minute. So this dough was mixed first thing when the kids and I had just fired up the cook stove. We stirred all the ingredients together with our wooden spurtle and then kneaded the dough a bit to get that yeast working. Because that yeast is doing a real job. It's not sourdough discard.
Here it comes.
It's living, fed yeast that is our one and only way to get these dumplings to rise.
So many recipes today. If you look up chicken and dumplings with sourdough, they're just gonna throw in some discard. But that's not the real thing. Discard really doesn't do all that much for a recipe. Might give you a little flavor, but it just mostly makes people feel better.
Mom, is that your recipe?
That's my recipe. Did we miss anything? But if you actually read those recipes, they're counting on baking powder and baking soda to do the heavy lifting. And we are going way more old school than that today. We are actually counting on the sourdough to give us our flavor and to give us our leavening. We'll see if it works. I don't expect these to be big, puffy biscuits. That's not what we're after. I could make those, and I could make them with sourdough, and they would work. But I want the southern chicken and dumplings. I want that flat cross between a noodle with just a little bit of puff. That's the goal of this recipe. Whether we get it or not, who knows? Because for all my searching, there weren't that many recipes out there. This was one of those dishes that was humble. Didn't make it into a lot of cookbooks. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing you'd probably serve for company. But man, oh man, out on a homestead, on the Montana prairie, with a rooster like this who'd given you some trouble, this was a meal. And I bet this was a meal everybody loved. Kids, adults, old, young. Who doesn't like chicken and dumplings, right?
Well, I'll be honest, Robbie doesn't love dumplings. He'd rather have biscuits any day. We're not on the same page on that one. But a big reason why the dumpling came about in history was that you didn't need to heat up an oven to make biscuits on the side. Ovens were special. They were still pretty rare. And this oven was a bit of a treasure to have back in the 1800s, early 1900s in your own house. So chicken and dumplings is a one-pot solution for your meat, your vegetables, and your bread. Instead of a biscuit or a thin noodle, the dumpling became kind of a cross between the two, and a very satisfying cross at that. Plus, this dinner has the uncanny ability to take a ranch bird, however small, and feed the crowd.
Now this is something straight out of history. These are the chicken breasts. Look how little they are. Now granted, this was a young chicken, it was a rooster, and these are just crosses. They're nothing special. They aren't specifically broiler chickens or anything like that. Look at the size of that. I mean, when we go to the store today and we get a chicken breast, think how gigantic they are. But back in history, this is what you got. This is it. You couldn't make a whole meal out of everyone getting a chicken breast. We're so spoiled today.
They're tied together in a knot. See?
This meal hit home to me how much we've become detached from our food. Myself fully included in the general we of modern life. I was pleased to see that the kids handled butchering day really well. They understood without any tears that the roosters have a role to play on the farm. And if we want dinner, they'll be a part of that. Once a person sees that connection, it's pretty tough to take meat for granted.
Here's one!
Oh, look at that.
Oh my golly, here's a good one.
That's why after all these years, that one Ina Garten recipe still gets under my skin. Chicken broth using 3 whole chickens that you then discard? Flavor be damned, that's crazy.
I mean, those are 3 living creatures that it took just to make chicken broth? No, those lives are worth more than that. And certainly a homesteader out here just getting by, man, 3 chickens, that was a dream. Eating any of your chickens would have been probably done after they either stopped laying eggs or they were a rooster like this and they just weren't useful to you anymore. And in that case, you weren't getting a big, giant, chunky bird full of meat. You were getting a nutritious animal that was probably pretty skinny and pretty small. But you could make an awesome meal if you knew how to cook them right. Or you could make a pretty dreadful meal if you didn't know how to cook it right. I mean, if you just cut the chicken breasts off of a rooster like this and throw them on the grill, you're gonna be pretty disappointed.
The fresh garden vegetables are all in and simmering in the pot. Onions, young carrots, and pea pods. A few potatoes to thicken it up a bit. You can see the peas got haled a bit, but that's okay. We don't need perfection here. These are the staple vegetables that grow even in the harsh north. That kind of resilience is what this meal is all about. Nothing fiddly. The vegetables just need to simmer until tender. The chicken follows the vegetables in, and now all is cooking down. But the dumplings aren't in yet when all of a sudden everyone arrives, soaking wet after being out in the fields with Dad.
Raining, Mommy!
You're drenched!
They're drenched from a surprise thunderstorm, but in good spirits.
Did you have fun?
So,
The bowls are brought down and the table set. In sunnier weather, we've all been helping haul hay bales from their random drop points in the fields, and then we've been lining them up in long, straight rows. Robbie has done 95% of this, but my dad, along with the kids and I, well, we've chipped in whenever possible. The ground out here where the foothills meet the prairie, it isn't great for growing vegetables. But alfalfa hay and grass hay, that's something it gives us in spades. The hay feeds the cows and horses through long winters, and the more the kids are a part of this daily work, the more Robbie and I have hope for the future. Now we have a hungry family tromping in, ready to eat. Luckily, about half an hour ago, I got the dough patted down and rolled out. All that good sourdough flavor and rise, it's been developing this whole time. And now it's ready to go. So that disc is flattened out and rolled to maybe 1/4 inch. You can see the flecks of the stone ground wheat in there. That heritage wheat, that's gonna give a nutty, almost cinnamon flavor to the dumplings. Then sliced into long strips and sliced again into rough squares, and maybe more rectangles. Rustic is our aim here. Then once again, that sourdough needs to rise. Just for maybe 10-20 minutes, just to puff up a little bit. I'm not too worried about the amount of time. But with the family bounding through the door, it's time to get the dumplings into that boiling pot of soup. They just need another 10 minutes and we'll have a grand, finished meal. Oh, and over the tops of the dumplings, I'm sprinkling homemade garlic scape salt for a humble yet just a bit over-the-top flavor. Flavor is the name of the game with this recipe, but the beauty of it is we have all we need right here from one bird and some humble vegetables and herbs from the garden. Nothing is wasted and nothing is excessive.
Now, if you're thinking all these bones and bits of skin are going to waste, they will not be, because we're gonna boil them down again, and we'll get more broth, more bone broth. Any little bits of nutrients we can get from this bird, we're gonna get them, because you didn't throw stuff away.
Mama, what are we cooking now?
Hot soup, hot soup.
We have soup cooking.
Right, now very hot, okay? All right.
So what's the verdict? The dumplings turned out to be an absolutely unique 1800s version. They're not a noodle, they're not a biscuit boiled on top of a stew. These dumplings have air pockets and a gentle lightness thanks to the sourdough. but a thin noodle-like element as well. It's totally a food that is up my alley. And with that garlic-scaped salt sprinkled on top, oh, it's pretty heavenly.
Now time for the chicken.
But the really unexpected part for me is the meat. I was bracing myself for a stringy, sinewy rooster and maybe flavor I wouldn't like. But that's not the case. The kids gobbled up the chicken, and so did I.
Good?
The chicken is amazing.
I can't speak highly enough of it. But on top of its standalone great flavor, I think all the knowledge of the work and the time that went into raising the bird from an egg and preparing it for a meal, and then standing beside the wood-burning cook stove all day, all of that got us to this moment of eating it. And that all plays into the appreciation. I'll tell you, I did not throw out one piece of this meat. It's just too special. So we've gone from butchering to simmering that bird for hours with herbs and water, all the way up to a finished chicken and dumplings meal. On a winter's day or a rainy summer day like this one, what could be better than all day spent like this? A luxury today, yes, but an everyday meal not too long ago in history. It's a shame that days like this one have become rare.
Good.
Great.
As opposed to comfortingly commonplace. The satisfaction of a long, meandering day is further proof to me that this sort of quiet life is better in line with our souls than any fast-paced competition the world has to offer today.
Well, you guys, that was a delicious and very nutritious family meal. And that little burst of rain that came through right at the end, heaven, heaven. I am loving the weather this summer. Knock on wood, heaven forbid some disasters find us before harvest is done. But I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm really enjoying this summer. And I can hear the rain hitting the roof, so we better load up our gear and go see what other work needs to be done on the farm. Everybody else is outside except me, so this is it. I'm on my way out. Thank you for cooking in the cabin with us this Saturday. I hope you'll join us next week. We'll explore some 1800s meals that define common folk, especially people out west here. It was a hard but a beautiful way of life. Cheers, you guys. Woohoo! Go George! You!
Go, Georgie!